I am more than a color. I am more than my past. I am a woman. And as a woman of African American descent who works in education, I've spent a lot of time fighting for equality and social justice. Nonetheless, I am unable to endorse the ideology of critical race theory, which has been gaining popularity over the last several years. Although it's possible that the CRT's course creators' original mission was to advance social justice, the very name itself has morphed into a divisive force that spreads what I believe to be a toxic belief that we as Black Americans are eternal victims, never able to free ourselves from what has been done to us, therefore unable to embrace what we are able to do for ourselves. I have personal experience with the negative effects that adopting a victim mentality can have on both people and societies. A victim mentality is a learned personality feature that may be established as a response to having gone through traumatic or stressful circumstances. It is natural for someone who has been mistreated to feel like a victim, but it is critical to avoid allowing this mentality to take over one's whole existence, even if it is logical that they would feel this way. When people start to feel that they are helpless victims of their circumstances and that they have no control over their situation, this is when the risk factor comes into play. As a lover of Greek mythology, I have to show what I believe to be a unique parallel. Greek mythology is filled with tales of gods and goddesses who often viewed themselves as victims. These divine beings often felt slighted by humans who did not honor them in the way they felt they deserved. As a result, the gods engaged in endless wars with humans and with each other, unable to see beyond their own perceived victimization. One example of this victim mentality is seen in the myth of Prometheus. Prometheus was a titan who had given fire to humans, an act that angered Zeus, the king of the gods. As punishment for this perceived act of defiance, Zeus had Prometheus chained to a rock, where an eagle would peck out his liver every day, only for it to grow back overnight. In this myth, both Prometheus and Zeus exhibit victim mentality. Prometheus feels that he has been unfairly punished for helping humanity, while Zeus believes that he is the victim of Prometheus' disobedience. Both are unable to see beyond their own perspectives, and as a result, their conflict becomes eternal. Another example of victim mentality is seen in the story of the Trojan War. The gods and goddesses of Olympus took sides in the war, each believing that they were the victim of the other side's actions. For example, Aphrodite, the goddess of love and beauty, sided with the Trojans, feeling that they had been wronged by the Greeks. Hera, the queen of the gods and wife of Zeus, sided with the Greeks, feeling that they were the true victims. In this myth, the gods and goddesses are unable to see beyond their own perceptions of victimization. As a result, they engage in a destructive and endless war, with no end in sight. What the gods and goddesses fail to see is that they themselves have the power to recreate their futures. They are divine beings with immense power, and yet they are steeped in their own victimization, unable to see beyond their own egos. Ultimately, the victim mentality that is present in these myths reflects the human tendency to view ourselves as victims in our own lives. We may feel that we have been wronged by others, or that the world is unfair to us. However, like the gods and goddesses, we have the power to change our own futures. By recognizing our own agency and power, we can move beyond a victim mentality and take control of our own lives. We can learn to see beyond our own perspectives and to understand the perspectives of others. And, like the gods and goddesses, we can create a better future for ourselves and for those around us. This same victim attitude is fostered by CRT, which places an emphasis on the institutionalized racism and oppression that African Americans have historically encountered and continue to encounter in modern times. CRT goes too far in presenting African Americans as helpless victims of a system that is rigged against them. Although it is vital to identify and confront these challenges, CRT goes too far in portraying African Americans as such. This kind of thinking not only reinforces the impression that one has no control over their circumstances, but it also makes it difficult to take constructive steps toward effecting change. In addition, CRT encourages people to believe that those who do not identify as Black are incapable of understanding the experiences of Black people in the United States. While it is true that our histories have molded the experiences we have all had, this does not imply that we are unable to sympathize with people who have had to deal with a different set of obstacles. This dividing worldview does little more than reinforce sentiments of us against them and makes it harder to collaborate towards shared objectives. As a person who works in education, I am a proponent of giving people the tools they need to take charge of their own lives and to work toward the improvement of their circumstances. Although it is important to recognize the obstacles and inequalities that African Americans must navigate, it is also important to inspire folks to take constructive steps toward effecting change. We are the only ones who can make the future better for everyone else by empowering others and taking constructive action. In conclusion, despite the fact that CRT may have initially been motivated by altruistic goals, it has evolved into a divisive force that encourages a victim mentality and makes it difficult to take constructive steps toward effecting change. As a woman of African descent who works in education, I am unable to support an ideology that depicts African Americans as helpless victims of a system that is biased against them. Although it is necessary to recognize the difficulties we are currently facing, we also need to urge folks to take constructive action toward change. Only then will we be able to build a brighter future for everyone.